All right. So we're talking to Geordie Day today. Tell my audience about why they'll love your documentary, Nevermore, The Raven Effect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun watch. I certainly made it for wrestling fans. So it's got lots of like the crazy kind of behind the scenes stories and antics that could have only taken place during like 90s wrestling. Basically, when wrestling kind of blew up so big because of the ECWs, WCW, WWF, they were all kind of blowing up around the same time. WWF was beating Monday Night Football in the ratings. But the backstage kind of world of wrestling didn't have time to kind of catch up with the success. Wrestling hadn't become corporate yet. So it was total chaos backstage. And so I think it's a fun setting. It's a fun story. And I think it's a smart movie. Raven is a singular character in the world of wrestling. I think he's a true artist. And fundamentally, the story is about how he drew on his childhood pain to kind of create this character of Raven. And in doing so, he started to sort of transform into the character in and of itself. And so it's an interesting kind of psychological biopic documentary, and it's about a really crazy wild time in pro wrestling.
I love it. That's great context for people, and I bet someone out there is going to be compelled to see it now. So,
I hope so. Thank you.
heck yes. Well, what was the first step you took to get this thing going?
Well, I called Raven. I didn't know him, but I basically cold called him. I had heard him. I had like years ago, like quite a while ago now. I guess it would have been in 2019. I came out with this documentary, biopic on Bob Probert, who was a hockey fighter, and it was really a great experience. And it was a really fun documentary to do. But it also kind of had like a fan base because like within inside the world of hockey, there's a even more niche kind of fans that are specifically fans of hockey fighting. And I was trying to think like within sports, like what other world I could kind of tackle that would have kind of like a diehard fan base within a fan base. And within wrestling, it kind of feels like ECW has like its own kind of diehard fan base, or people that like, they still like even like in the indies when Raven comes out, there's still fans chanting ECW or Tommy Dreamer, that like there's still just a diehard ECW fan base. So I really wanted to do something within that world. And then I was listening to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast. I heard Raven on it. Sorry, this zooming in and out is kind of distracting, isn't it? I wonder if there's a way to
I
turn that
don't know
off.
what to do about it, but we're just going to roll with it.
Okay, we're gonna roll with it. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I was listening to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast and I was listening to Raven on it, and um he had like, a unique perspective on wrestling. He had the reverence for sort of the tradition of wrestling and what makes wrestling great, but he had a perspective in terms of what wrestling could be and what the ultimate product is, which had more to do with storytelling than the athleticism within the sport, which is kind of in line with like my opinion in terms of like what makes wrestling great is just like is really the storytelling aspect of it, is sort of the live theater aspect of it. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like I just, I heard you on this podcast. I think you're really brilliant in terms of your perspective on wrestling. And so you'd be a really phenomenal biopic because you'd just be a great person to hear talk wrestling for like 2 hours. And there's only like you think like there's like all these options of people that'd be great to spend 2 hours with talking about wrestling. Um, but actually, the bar for that I think is pretty high to hold an audience attention for that long. And he kind of is in that rarefied air where it's so fascinating to hear his genius around the sport. Um, and so I told him that, and I think he was definitely interested. He was a little skeptical because like I reached out just kind of cold, like no like introductory kind of relationship. But we talked on the phone a few times. And he's like, okay, well, let's give this a go. And we put together kind of a game plan for how to film the thing and took, probably took a couple years, not like full time, but like through shoots, like catching up with him at indie promotions, interviewing everybody. Took a couple years to film it, and it's been a journey. And I mean, I've said this on other podcasts, and feel free to interrupt me because I sometimes I tend to ramble. But I've said this on other podcasts, but it's true. Like because so much of the documentary deals with like how difficult and particular and challenging Raven can be to like work with. Like that's what he says. So I thought, okay, like at some point he's going to be a challenge. Like I'm going to have to, rein him in a bit or like find a way to make this work. And he just like was never really difficult to work with. He was like pretty easy to work with the whole time. And it was a real pleasure. And that was sort of my experience with wrestlers throughout. Like I think, you can't really be successful in the wrestling business. It's too brutal, it's too hard, it's too challenging. As a difficult, well, I'm sure wrestlers would
Well, do you
argue.
think maybe it's because he's older and more subdued?
I think that's part of it. I think like he's done a lot of work on himself. I do think wrestlers are easier to work with than like some other athletes.
Huh.
Um, yeah, I think because I like especially for that era, you kind of you have to do so much of it. You need to bring so much to the table. It's pretty difficult to be like a total diva. You know what I mean? Like you're getting beat up all the time, so it's like just so physically demanding. You need to be so on your game in terms of the storytelling and psychological aspect of it. Like at least if you're like one of the top guys, right? And you need to be like phenomenally charismatic as like a performer in terms of the acting, the cutting the promos kind of thing. And so
They're easy
yeah,
to work with. I guess it's like because there's
comparatively.
there's only so many slots as well, and
Exactly.
you don't want to like additionally also be an asshole on top of that because it is
I
such a
think,
competitive thing. Like
yeah,
not many people made a living off this.
I think it's a hard industry to be a pain in the ass in. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think that flies that well. Um, so like obviously like amongst like wrestlers, they're like, oh, this guy's a pain in the ass, this guy's a pain in the ass. But like I worked as like an assistant director when I was younger, where basically like my job was like dealing with all the actors and taking them from like their trailers to set and like getting them coffees and stuff. And I'll say like actors are much, much harder to work with than wrestlers.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I'm just talking to actors or directors and no comment. But how's Raven's health these days?
He's it's pretty good considering all things. But I
Hmm.
think like I mean he doesn't shy away from the fact that, he's beat up and as he says you have to pay the piper. I mean like he worked in the wrestling industry for a long time. He got beat up for a long time, for a living, took a lot of chair shots to the head. We know now how damaging that is to your brain. And he took a lot of drugs. And that probably was as damaging as the wrestling was.
What kind of drugs did he take?
I think all of them, but I think the ones that did the most harm to him were the painkillers, the opiates.
Okay, okay. But like,
Yeah.
would he shoot up?
Yeah. He'd shoot up opiates. Yeah.
He'd shoot up like H.
Yeah. I think he was saying that he'd shoot up what were they called? Oxys, mostly
Oh,
in somas, not like
oh,
heroin.
he didn't do heroin,
Um,
or not likely.
that was in his that was in his addiction. His addiction was the Oxycontin.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm done being a narc now.
Yeah, no worries.
So I'm just
I
curious.
mean, it's really the same deal, right? I guess
Right, right.
it's not really that different, but
Oh, okay, okay. So I see that he's been at some screenings for this film, right? Can you tell me
yeah,
about that? Has that been a fun occasion for him?
yeah, I think it was really fun. We screened the doc really like all over the US, Chicago, Boston, uh, New Jersey, Atlanta, a bunch of other places. Like the docs played all over. And I think it was a lot of fun. Um, he's just like he's kind of like your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler kind of thing, which is, one of the theses of the doc was like, what he brought to ECW essentially like established a tone and really an era of wrestling that a lot of people copied because he was just like such a brilliant guy in terms of his perspective on wrestling. And so like a lot of like the diehard, the hardcore wrestling fans want to come out and talk to him about psychology, and he's happy to do that. He's pretty generous with his time, like mentoring young wrestlers and talking to people about wrestling. And um, yeah, I think he loves that kind of thing.
Nice. And so, are the screenings where he's in person? Is that done now?
Those are done, yeah. Yeah, the doc comes out digitally today on Amazon Prime.
Today
And
is for people.
yeah,
It
November
is
18th.
the 18th. Yeah.
And it'll come out on more platforms within the next month, like up until Christmas, like Google Play, Vudu, iTunes. You can rent it at other places too,
And the
like
Blu-ray. That's how I heard about
and the
this.
Blu-ray. Yeah, the Blu-ray, how cool is that? Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, like collector's item. They did like a really, really cool cover, and they have like
That slipcover is sold out in like 10 seconds.
I know.
How
I
many
know.
were there?
I was blown up. I was blown away by that. The Blu-rays, and even just the regular Blu-ray, I don't think there's many left. So if you're gonna buy the
Right.
Blu-ray, get on it.
But how many of the slipcovers were there? Because they were just gone. Like it was like in a blink of an eye.
Yeah,
Do you know
it's.
off the top of your head how many there were?
I think I know, but I don't know for sure. I'm hesitant to say because I
Oh,
might be
okay,
wrong.
okay. Well, that's okay. We'll just forget about it then.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It
All
was
right.
impressive. I was like, wow, those sold out quick. But the slipcover
Yeah.
was really cool. Actually, like in fact, I was like, oh man, I should have asked for one, or like maybe I should
Yeah.
buy one down because I loved it too, like with the crucifixion on the front
Right.
and like the name and blood. They came up with some really cool concepts for that cover.
Oh yeah, it was tough. Do you have a favorite Raven match?
Man, what a cool question. You know what match? So like there's a lot that are really, really cool. But so like a lot's been made of the fact that Raven didn't reach the heights he wanted in WWE when he came back. Um, and he was doing all this stuff with the hardcore title. But I remember as a kid, I loved those hardcore title matches with the like 24/7 hardcore title and like how they'd go through the arena. Like I thought as a filmmaker, I thought those were so I mean, I wasn't a filmmaker when I saw them at the time, but I thought they were so creative and so fun and so cinematic, seeing people fight through like washrooms and going outside. And I loved that kind of creativity. And I like when people push the envelope like that. So I really liked that WrestleMania match with the golf cart um, car chase. Like the concept of having a car chase in a wrestling match to me is so smart. It's so cool. I can see why they don't do it a lot because, it kind of ended with like, I guess they almost took the power out in the building. Like they hit the golf cart, like hit the like power source. And yeah, maybe it's a liability thing, but like I love that match. And when Ravens throw him through the glass pane, that shot's like in the documentary, like that looked amazing. And just seeing him, kind of fight these like two big guys is kind of like these two giants. Whereas like, of that era, he's kind of considered like a not like a big wrestler, like probably on the smaller side. So it just looked like amazing. Like there's like comedy in it. And I don't know, like I just really love that match. I think it's just so creative.
I love it. And
Yeah.
I love the whole Ravens flock thing in WCW. Tell me all
Yeah.
about Raven as the cult leader.
Yeah. I like so I think that's a really brilliant thing too. Like he kind of knew that he's not he says he's not an athlete like I think by like most like I mean he's a pretty athletic guy. But as far as like some wrestlers, he's not as athletic as a lot of wrestlers and he kind of knew what he brought to the table was more psychological than athletic. And just like kind of the yeah, like the Charles Manson thing of like he's kind of manipulated this like ragtag kind of group of lost souls, and he's having them do his bidding. That's such a great gimmick. You
I
know, it's
love.
just,
Sorry, I just
yeah.
love the whole
No, go
Chris
ahead.
Benoit thing. When Chris Benoit would beat someone from the flock, and then they would just
Yeah.
all come in and beat up Chris.
Yeah, it was good.
That was kind of neat about them is they did kind of suck. They all kind of sucked, but they were this like misfit family.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of neat, like having them kind of like henchmen. It felt like very much like kind of like a movie. Like I sometimes I think they could have did more with that. Like wouldn't it have been kind of fun if like they'd really pushed the envelope on that? You know, like the flock were doing like because in this era I think this would have worked. Like the flock was doing like darker things, like maybe breaking into people's like houses and being like creepy, like Manson family vibes. Um, but yeah, the flock is great, and we kind of get into that in the documentary that kind of stems not like the darkness of it, but like that the concept of Raven having flunkies and like that kind of stems from real life. He liked to kind of have guys around to like mentor because I think he likes mentoring people. He likes helping people, but he liked them, doing his laundry, taking care of everything for him too. He liked being in that kind of like position of power.
It's so funny. And they
Yeah.
do in the documentary. They also talk about like a degree of frustration in WCW and navigated it into that top 10, wrestlers like Luger and Hogan and those guys. And I think a lot of people say
Yeah.
the NWO thing got milked a little bit too, right? And maybe something could have like what you're saying about more creepy deeds
Yeah.
done by the flock. Maybe that would have been the answer, but it's fun, just like hypothetical stuff for sure.
Oh, I think so. I think that's fun. Like it's kind of fun when like a gang of wrestlers is like feuding with a gang of wrestlers. And I do think they could have done more with the flock in that way. Like NWO versus the flock. Like, and that doesn't like people might roll their eyes at that, because of like how stacked. I mean, the Flock had great wrestlers, but like the NWO was like everybody was so over, but they didn't have to like beat them clean. Like they could have, do you know what I mean? Like they could have been like messing with people's cars or like doing stuff like that and like just kind of been more like elusive. Um, I agree with you. I think they could have done more there.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to throw it up there. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of the WCW Vault on YouTube. Is there going to be like an
Yeah.
ECW Vault? Do you think?
Oh, I have no idea. That's
Oh,
a
okay, okay.
question. That's a question for WWE. They do seem to
Right,
put
right,
out
right.
some like cool stuff.
Yeah, the Vault is really cool.
Yeah.
And people can see that they can see there's a video that the Vault put out. It's just like little highlights of Raven's flock. And it's like a
I
two
saw
hour
that.
like cut. It's like all dramatic stuff. It's not the fights themselves.
Yeah, they did that really recently. I was like, oh, I wonder if that has anything to do with like they're like, oh, the doc's coming out. Like maybe we'll. I have no idea if it's related at all.
They're probably jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, maybe. They're smart. They're pretty smart over there.
um, and what else can you say about ECW?
Well, like for me, ECW was my favorite because yeah, and it's like I mean I just love that era of wrestling, just how outrageous it was. And wrestling's always kind of outrageous, but like during the whole Attitude Era, they were just getting away with such R-rated crazy angles, like insane angles. And a lot of that came from ECW and uh a lot of that came from Raven. That whole tone. And when I was a kid, I loved ECW because it felt like like when you're a kid and like if you maybe not everybody, but like I got into like punk rock young. Like I was like 8 or 9 and I was like kind of scared, of the punk rock stars because it felt so dangerous. The shows looked dangerous. They looked violent. They looked like unruly. The and ECW had that like kind of punk rock sort of spirit to it. Like I was scared of the ECW wrestlers. Like Sabu was scary. And I grew up in Calgary, so like I had some semblance even as a kid because my parents were friends with some of the Hearts that wrestling was a work. But like
And
I
for people out there that explain what
yeah,
that
yeah.
means. Yeah.
Just basically that like wrestling is predetermined, it's a show, it's theater. But there's always kind of like, elements of things that are legitimate within that, you know, like there's shoots or what you'd call them, like where people fight for real or like they actually maybe get real heat, like they actually get like kind of heated amongst themselves. I don't think that happens so much at like a WWE level. And even ECW was a lot more, I mean, I think it was a little bit crazy, but it was probably a lot more professional than I appreciated as a kid. Like I thought like, oh, wrestling's a work, but this ECW thing, a lot of this is like scary and reckless and real. It had that feeling to it. And so,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's like a psychological thing. Like because
yes,
it's
yeah.
more violent, you're like, oh well, therefore it's like piercing through that fourth wall, right?
Yeah, people are
Yeah,
like
yeah,
jumping off of like balconies and stuff, and it like I think the fact that it looked kind of amateur in terms of the production, like
right,
made it like scarier. Do you
for
know what I mean?
sure.
It felt like found footagey. Like this is like this crazy like underground thing where people are like actually cutting each other up and like I thought like the wrestlers in ECW wanted to hurt each other. I really thought that.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's really like stuck like that stuck with me till like I started doing this doc. Like I kind of expected the people I was interviewing to be like a little bit crazy. Like
Well, they
even
are a
like
little bit
Tommy
crazy.
Dreamer, who is a baby, they must be, right? But like
Yeah.
even like Tommy Dreamer, who's like a baby face, like was of the baby face of ECW, he still seemed crazy in ECW because he was so like violent that like I thought he was gonna be like this big kind of scary guy. And then he's like the nicest, like girl dad ever. Like is just such a sweetheart and is so nice to like all the young wrestlers and like mentors them. And that was the case with like a lot of the wrestlers are like just unbelievably nice, helpful guys. And we're like, oh, you're trying to do this documentary, like RVD's like if there's anyone you want to talk to or like any help, like reach out. Like I'll help you
Wow.
like try and line up interviews. And everybody was like that. Like DDP's like that, famously. DDP's famously like a good person.
Right, right,
But
right.
all, pretty much every wrestler I met, I like could not believe
Who
Chris
was the
Jericho,
scary
like
guy with the face tattoos? I forget the guy's name.
Perry Saturn.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but he's the nicest guy too.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
What do you
so
think Raven
nice.
learned about himself during this process, if anything?
Um, so I think he'd already kind of learned these things. Like I think, I mean, his story is just so crazy in that like one thing that's fascinating about him is pre-Raven character. I mean, he was pretty like in touch with what was going on pop culturally, but he wasn't Raven at all. Like he was a frat guy jock. Like he
What
was
was he, the
not.
flamingo guy? He talks like the
Yeah, he
chicken
was,
shit
but
heel
like in
character,
re
Scotty
like
Flamingo.
Scott Levy was a really popular, good-looking, athletic guy, like all-American guy. He was a Marine. And then I think through the Raven character, he explored like this darkness within him. Like he explored this like all this childhood pain. Um, and then that kind of took over his life for a long time. And I don't think it was till like he went to therapy and was able to sort of like sort that all out. Like I think the character helped him explore the pain, but I don't think it was till he like really went to therapy and was able to like sort of sort that all out and come to terms with it all that he kind of was able to sort of separate and make sense of it all. And I'm not sure if the doc I think he sorted that all out more in therapy than he did
Okay.
through.
All right, okay. And did this documentary perhaps inspire you to make another documentary about another wrestler?
I would. I like I don't have plans to, but I definitely like wouldn't be
Could you
opposed.
rhyme off like a few that you would consider maybe doing it with?
I just haven't thought about it.
Okay, okay,
I
okay.
don't. Yeah, I love the question. It's a really smart question. Um, I think I'd like need to kind of like research it more and be like, but there's lots, like I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many phenomenal stories in wrestling. Like it's no wonder Dark Side of the Ring, kind of these behind the
Oh,
scenes
so good.
documentary stories have done so well. It's a really crazy, interesting world full of like really weird, eccentric kind of guys, but they're also really brilliant and interesting. So there's lots of wrestlers that I think would make for phenomenal documentaries. Like there's no shortage of that.
Oh yeah, and what I like about the fact
I
that you
will
picked,
say, I don't know if anyone's
yeah,
doing it, but like someone should do like a doc series on the Hart family,
oh
like
yeah,
coming from Calgary. And I think a lot of people have tried, and maybe there are some out there, but I don't think anyone's done like a real high-end one. Like
oh
Netflix should be like they should do like a big one because that
yeah,
the stories of that family and like the fact that they came from a Canadian territory and basically like Bret Hart became the biggest wrestler in the world and how crazy their upbringing was, like that would make for an incredible documentary.
oh yeah. What I really like about your documentary is that it's like a deep cut, but it's like he's enough of a name, and I
Yeah.
also like that he sort of wears it on as like a badge of honor that he's like neglected, like or in terms of
Yeah.
appreciation by some people. They
Yeah,
sort of leave his name out, but like
he made it
but we still
part of
kind
the
of
gimmick.
know about him, right? He's on the cover of the WCW Revenge at 64 game and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's cool. Like my favorite bands, like I always liked kind of like the punk rock underground bands that were like doing the most interesting things that everybody kind of copied. Like that those were always like my favorite like artists. So from like an objective perspective, I like could not believe he was disappointed with his career. You know what I mean? I'm like, because he's so influential. And so that's why I was so happy to kind of give him his flowers and be like, hey, like look at all these characters he brought to ECW and created. Like even like the Dudley Boys, he ended up becoming one of the biggest tag teams of all time. And and just like his tone and style and everything he brought to the business. Um, I think in his mind, he wanted to be like the like world champion in WWF, and it took him a long time to kind of realize like what he did was pretty cool too. But from my perspective, I was like, I think what you did is cooler. Like,
I love
like
it.
I, yeah, I never liked like the mainstream pop music. I like the more interesting like influential stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Geordie. I really had fun chatting with you today. And like I said, Nevermore, The Raven Effect, my favorite documentary of the year.
Right on.
Uh,
Thanks.
what do you think? You're welcome. What do you think is the most meaningful theme of this documentary? If you had to just like pick like one word to sum it all up.
One word. Um, well, I mean, I guess it's just honest. I mean,
Oh,
he's an exceptionally honest. Um, yeah, I'm not good with one word.
okay. Oh, what about like
But I
several
think,
words, like
yeah, I
sincerity,
think what's interesting about this
neglected?
is, yeah, yeah, those are all really
Yeah,
good. I think what's interesting, like about the film, and sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it's just
yeah.
like like POV, I guess. He has a very different lens in terms of the wrestling business than anything I guarantee than you've seen before. Raven looks at wrestling the same like as any other art form. To him, wrestling is high art. To him, wrestling is a Martin Scorsese movie, and he's Daniel Day-Lewis. And he was so invested in that. He essentially was a method actor, and it was very damaging to his own life. It came to a lot of personal cost. And there just aren't a lot of wrestlers that looked at it that way. They were focused on the athleticism. They weren't focused on becoming the character. And so I think it's a really fresh take in that way.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.